Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. In the name of Allah, most gracious, ever merciful. Assalamu alaikum. Peace and blessings of Allah be upon you, dear viewers. Welcome to tonight's lecture organized by the UK Talim Department. As per our tradition, we will start with the recitation of the Holy Quran. Can I request Labib Ahmed Sahib to recite a portion of the Holy Quran and read its English translation?
Assalamu alaikum warahmatullah. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. ومن أحسن قولا ممن دعا إلى الله وعمل صالحا وقال إنني من المسلمين. ولا تستوي الحسنة ولا السيئة ادفع بالتي هي أحسن فإذا الذي بينك وبينه عداوة كأنه ولي حميم. وما يلقاها إلا الذين صبروا وما يلقاها إلا ذو حظ عظيم. Translation. In the name of Allah, the Gracious, ever merciful. And who is better in speech than he who invites men to Allah and does good works and says, I am surely of those who submit. And good and evil are not alike. Repel evil with that which is best. And lo, he between whom and thyself was enmity will become as though he were a warm friend. But none is granted it save those who are steadfast. And none is granted it save those who possess a large share of good. Jazakallah.
Jazakallah. Tonight we have the pleasure of being joined by Qamar Ahmed Zafar Sahib, Marabi Sisla, serving in MTA Online and Mohammed, General Secretary for New Ahmadis, Majlis Khudam al-Ahmadiyya, which is the auxiliary organization of for youth of Ahmadiyya Muslim Community UK. This evening, Qamar Sahib will speak on the topic of convert stories through online tabligh. As always, there will be an opportunity for you to ask questions. These will be put to our guest on your behalf in the last 15 minutes. Please type your questions into the live chat and kindly ensure they are relevant to tonight's topic. It gives me a pleasure to hand over to Qamar Sahib. Murabi Sahib, you're on mute. So if you can join mute.
Technical glitches. Even those who work in MTA cannot figure out these small things. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. نحمده ونصلي على رسوله الكريم وعلى عبده المسيح الموعود. Jazakallah for inviting me to the AMA Talim lectures. And I'm pretty young, so I don't know how much wisdom and knowledge I might be able to depart to those who are elder, but I'll try just to share some of the stories, narrations of what we have seen and how we have seen Ahmadiyyas flourish, propagate online, especially as I've had the opportunity to serve in MTA, but not just MTA, in the social media and online department for the past just over 2 years, I would say. We've learned a lot, we've experienced a lot, we've been taught a lot under the obviously guidance of His Holiness Hazrat Amir al-Mu'mineen, Ayyadahu Allahu bi Nasrihi al-Aziz. For those of you who are on social media nowadays may have seen a new platform called Inside Ahmadiyya, which is on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, also on YouTube as well, which is dedicated towards defending Islam Ahmadiyya, of course, answering allegations, but also doing active tabligh, speaking to people who leave their questions in the comments in our private messages, picking up upon their interests, what they want to know about Islam. And like I said, we've had a lot of success with people online who have come asking about this. So today I'm inshallah going to hopefully try to let you guys know a little bit about how you can actually do that at home, how you from your very workplace or from your office right or from your home right now, it is lockdown, so why not, you can literally from your laptop or your phone actually do active tabligh, and it's very easy. I think there's a lot of people who might be a little bit nervous about it. They might be thinking that I don't have enough knowledge for this, I'm not the greatest speaker. And for most of the part, it's not actually the case. But even if it is the case, online debating, online tabligh isn't even anywhere near as the same as doing it in person. Because when you're doing tabligh in person, you need to be having the answers. You need to have your knowledge on point. You need to be able to reply in exactly the same moment. But when you're online and you're speaking to people, you have a lot more time to reflect upon what you're going to give as an answer, how you're going to form it. So there are many benefits as well of that as well. So like I said, we do know about the other ways of tabligh, conventional tabligh, going out there to villages as Murabbiyan and missionaries have done so in the past and are continuing to do so, whether it's through events that we hold in our mosques or whether it's us who go out door by door, street to street and trying to propagate the message of Islam Ahmadiyyat. But here is another way that we can see. For example, we know in the Holy Quran that Allah Almighty says, and He gives the example of how between feces and blood, Allah Almighty has created milk. So there are two seemingly filthy things which people might think, what is the use of that? And they might seem useless, but something so pure and so beneficial and nutritious has been created from that, that is milk. And this actually is a lesson for us Muslims as well, because we see that unfortunately nowadays on social media, online, it's actually being used for lots of filth, for lots of vain and useless activities. And that's unfortunately what's happening right now. But the duty of a Muslim is to take that same utility, to take that same tool and convert it into something which is beneficial, which is going to turn out to be a positive outcome for those who are using it. And that's exactly what we need to do with social media. There are people who are out there using it for weird things, things which we can't even speak of, but we should be out there trying to use it to propagate the true message of Islam. How can we actually do that? Do you need to go out there and do you need to be on Twitter, on social media, Instagram, creating your own accounts? You may be doing that, but there's so many easier methods to actually just pick up on people who might be interested in tabligh. For example, the MTA online account, which we currently have on YouTube, has approximately about 150,000 subscribers and is growing, alhamdulillah, day by day. And in the videos, you can watch them and you'll see in the comments below, you'll find hundreds, if not thousands of people who just leave their comments behind. Either they're interested about Jamaat, some of them might be genuinely curious about certain things, asking questions. You'll also find those people who might actually be ill-intended towards the Jamaat as well. They might leave harsh comments, or they may not leave any profanity or anything like that, but they may raise allegations against the Jamaat in a way where they might not expect an answer, but they might just be there to create a fuss or create a hassle. Nevertheless, all of these people have been brought to our doorstep without us having to go anywhere. We don't have to leave the house. We don't have to leave your room. These people are there in front of you on your screen, and you are able to talk to them as if they were in front of you. And we can see this is really, really important because there are many countries around the world, unfortunately, where Ahmadiyya is a taboo topic. In other countries beyond that, it's actually a criminal act to maybe even speak about Ahmadiyya. We know there's countries in Asia and the Middle East, for example, where people who want to know more about Ahmadiyya, they may have found out about it from somewhere, but they can't just go on the street or they can't just go to the library or to their friend and be like, oh yeah, I heard about this religion, this faith, it sounds really interesting to me. They can't do that. Why can't they do that? Because if they do that, they might be punished under blasphemy laws, they might be imprisoned, they might be just tortured, they might be looked down upon in society. So where do these people go? How do they find answers? The easiest way for them to find answers is online. And they obviously stumble upon our platforms, seemingly the main platforms such as MTA, Al-Islam, and other platforms like that. And these often, more often than not, are those people who are already genuine in their endeavors. They already genuinely want to know about Islam Ahmadiyya, as opposed to you might go to the street, you might approach a random person with a leaflet. Inshallah, God might put that into his heart as well, that he wants to learn about Islam. But he had not originally intended to leave his house to learn about Islam Ahmadiyya. But with these people online, the people that you're addressing and talking about, they already know about you. They already want to know. The reason why they're even watching that video in the first place is because they want to know about Islam Ahmadiyya, or they have a prejudice about Islam Ahmadiyya. These both things should be looked at positively. I want to say that from the beginning. Even if you see somebody who's speaking harshly about us, it's not necessarily always a bad thing. And I'll speak about that very shortly as well. So having said this, we have a great blessing in this time where we can easily utilize online, we can easily utilize social media, and we can, in a safe and controlled manner, we can propagate the teaching and true message of Islam Ahmadiyya as well. So getting into this, before we do actually talk about the various instances, various examples of people who actually were able to come to Islam Ahmadiyya through this, it's really important to know one or a few things. That if you want to actually do this and you have an interest in, spreading the message of Islam, you're talking to people about Islam Ahmadiyya online, you like to debate with people, then remember one thing. You are speaking to people who you're not speaking to face to face. So you don't really know who they are. They could be, as what we dub on social media, they could be a troll. They could be there just to waste your time. They could be there just to create a fuss. They could be there, God forbid, for some malicious intent as well. For example, there are many countries around the world, obviously, where, like I said, where being an Ahmadi or studying about Ahmadiyya is a crime. It could be not only a crime, but it could just be looked down upon society, and it could cause problems for people who living in that country. If they were exposed that they were Ahmadi or that they were learning about Ahmadiyya, it would cause problems for them. So when you are doing tabligh and people are asking you about certain sensitive information, whether it comes to the information about a relevant Jamaat in a certain country, information about a group of people, information about the address of a place, for example, always be careful about relieving that information. Because yes, they could be genuine, they might want to know, but you should, in that instance, never ever take that on yourself to do that. And you should always get help from official offices like Wakalat al-Tabshir, or your local or authorities such as your Qaideen, if you're a Khadim, or your Nazimin, or you have your Sadran. You should always ask them about these things before going ahead and releasing that information, because you don't know at the end of the day who that person is on the other side of that screen. But inshallah, if you have that pure heart and you have the passion, then keeping these things in mind, you should be good. And just to let you know, I'm not just talking about this is an attempt. Just in the past 2 years, we're actually only about 2 people, permanent missionaries in the social media MTA department. And in the past 2 years or so, we've had, maybe 30 plus people who have, alhamdulillah, by the grace of God, either shown interest in the Jamaat or they've accepted Jamaat. And they've accepted Islam Ahmadiyyat. And not only that, but they've brought their families with them as well. And these people are extremely devout, and I'm going to talk about them. Just a little bit about who they are. For obvious reasons, I don't think I'm going to choose to tell you what their names are or what countries they belong to, but I will definitely tell you a little bit about them. So, of course, there are many videos on MTA online. You'll find an array of videos. You'll find, obviously, from the Friday sermons of Hazur to the classes of Gulshan-e-Waqf Fanal, Bustan-e-Waqf Fanal, to programs in the MTA studios, and even more lighter topics as well, which we have for children or youngsters as well. Nevertheless, you will find questions and comments in these areas all the time. You will find people who will be genuinely curious, like I said, and you'll find people who are raising allegations. We found one such person who actually, in one of the videos, was leaving quite harsh comments about the Ahmadiyya Muslim Jamaat. Obviously, the obvious things which that person would have known about us from the straightforward point of view is that we are heretics, that we believe in a prophet after the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that this cannot be possible, and many other things, ill things actually, about the Prophet Messiah alayhi salam as well. Now, genuinely, if you see a person like this on social media, you might be put off, and you might think that why should I even bother with this person? Well, we need to remember one thing. We need to remember that Hadrat Umar radiallahu anhu, who was one of the staunchest enemies of Islam, he once upon a time left his house to kill the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and now he's buried right next to him. So we should always remember that khiyarukum fil jahiliyyah, khiyarukum fil Islam, that the best of you, who are those who were there before Islam, will always be the best of you once they join Islam as well. So if we see somebody who's extremely knowledgeable, we see somebody who's extremely passionate about faith, they may be opposed to us, but if they find the truth, then they will be the best of the believers. So we should always try maybe even harder with those people who have maybe malice against us, because we don't know where that malice came from. It could just be ill-informed information. It could be a prejudice that they might have heard of, but they don't really know about the truth. And if we enlighten them about the truth, it could change their whole life. Yes, having said that, if you're engaging with somebody, and after even trying to preach to them, trying to tell them about the truth, they're using profane language, they're cursing, they're mocking, they're degrading, and you feel like they're just there for the oxygen, then maybe that's a time where you might want to rethink about your strategy. But generally speaking, from the forefront, we should never judge people from without even having spoken to them. And that's why when we saw this person on YouTube and we saw the comments, even though we felt they were a bit harsh, maybe they were allegations, we felt it was really important for us to get in touch with this person. So after getting in touch with this person, we found out that this person was pretty young, actually, about my age, and lived in a country, like I said, where speaking about Islam Ahmadiyya wasn't permitted. Even the books and the channels per se, to an extent, were actually banned. And so finding out about Islam Ahmadiyya was very, very difficult. But this individual obviously stumbled upon one of our platforms and started watching the videos, and was very, very interested about this. When we spoke to him, we actually got through to him, and we decided that straight away, one thing we should do, and we should also keep this in mind, is that if you feel like that somebody is there for the oxygen in the beginning, it's the best thing to do is take them offline as quickly as possible. There isn't any need to keep profanity or harsh language on a public space. So things like Twitter, which is an open platform, YouTube comments, which is also an open platform, if you feel like somebody might be there for an ill intent, then it's best to take them offline in a secure way, either to give them your number if you feel like that's something that you want to do, or to converse over email, or there's many other ways like that. So we did that, and that actually worked in our way, because when I spoke to this individual, and our team also at times spoke to this individual as well, we found out that he had many, many misconceptions about Islam Ahmadiyya. Of course, we spoke about, in the beginning, he actually said to me that I have a Maulvi Sahib in my mosque, and he says to me that he has an entire book of quotes and references that can refute anything that you guys say to me. So obviously we spoke to him, we presented our arguments about the death of Jesus alayhi salam, the finality of prophethood. There were various allegations that he raised about the Prophet Messiah alayhi salam. We know about them already. Some of them are very, very ridiculous, about how he passed away, about some of his writings. And we obviously defended our stance, and we spoke to him at length. And like I said, he came back to us with no allegations whatsoever, no arguments in that sense, but he did say that his cleric, his Maulvi Sahib, had the answers to these questions, and that he would be back to us within a matter of days. And of course, we said to him that, of course, you can take your time. And during that time, we of course prayed for him, and inshallah, we hope that he would come back to us with something that we could come back with. A few days had actually passed, and I was beginning to wonder, this gentleman hasn't come back to me. What happened to his scholar? So I contacted him again, and I asked him that you spoke to me about this scholar of yours with the answers. What's happened? He said, well, actually, I went to my scholar, and I said to him that, look, I finally got this Ahmadi Qadiani. I've got him in my grasp. All we have to do now is we have to convert him back to Islam. That's it. So can you just quickly give me those references and quotes that you've been telling me about? So his scholar heard this, and rather than getting happy or interested and intrigued, he became furious, so angry that he said to him that you have been watching the videos of these people who are heretics. How dare you do that? If you do that again, if I find out that you're watching their videos, you're reading about them again, then there is a sword in this mosque, and above that sword is the kalima. I will take that sword, and I will take your head off with that sword. Obviously, this youngster wasn't expecting this response, and not at all. He ran out of that place. And at that time, just to let you guys know, at this time, he hadn't told me this had happened. He'd only told me about this later. So what he told me at that time was that scholar is not available at the moment. I know another scholar, so I will go to him and find out. So I said, fine, give you another few days. A few days passed, and again, nothing. Absolutely nothing. And we obviously were beginning to get the feeling that maybe it's an empty shell. But again, you should remember, you should never give up on that person. So we did go back to that person again, and we said, please, brother, you had some questions and you wanted to give us some responses. Where are they? And he said, I went to the other scholar, and that's where he opened up to us completely now. He said, look, this is what happened with the first scholar. And the second scholar also chased me out of the mosque as well. And now it's clear to me that everything that I've been told by these scholars, by these Maulvis, is not true. And everything that you've said to me, even though when you used to say it to me, when you used to tell it to me, it used to make sense in my mind. But I just couldn't accept it because of what my scholars had told me. They had said to me that there is this information. But when I went to them, they fell flat on their faces. And this individual, in one instant, from being somebody whom you might have, or I might have deemed as extremely harsh, extremely gone, lost, we cannot help this person, became extremely faithful. And not just faithful in theoretical means that, oh, I believe. No. Where to speak about Islam, Ahmadiyya, was one thing. To be an Ahmadi, you have to be courageous. Now, this gentleman said to me, look, I believe in what you've told me, logically, ethically speaking. It's great, amazing. I believe it. My heart accepts it. But listen, I'm only 20 years old. What am I going to do? I'm going to tell my family. What are they going to do? They're going to kick me out of the house. Who's going to want to marry me in where I live? No one's going to want to marry me. How am I going to get a job? My father has a business which I'm supposed to inherit. What am I going to do about that? If I become an Ahmadi now, they will disown me. And obviously, when we hear about these things and we're living in countries or we're in situations where we were either born Ahmadi or we don't have those difficulties, you don't feel qualified to tell that person what to do. Of course not, because how dare you tell this person who's found his faith, but he's finding this difficulty. But we have a blessing, right? And for these situations, we have one thing which nobody else has, and that is Khilafat. So the first and foremost thing that we must do, if you do find somebody who wants to be like this and they are passionate, but they have obstacles, is to immediately attach them to Khilafat Ahmadiyya. And the best way and easiest way to do that is by, obviously, letters, writing by letters. We know that sometimes that can be difficult to do it literally with pen and paper, but that's why emails and other forms of correspondence exist. So of course, it doesn't matter that he lived thousands of miles away in a country where it was difficult. These modes were available to us, and this is all online. None of this could have been possible without the modes of online and social media. Alhamdulillah for this man, and alhamdulillah for us. So we connected him to Khilafat. And whatever his troubles were, whether they were his worries about marriage, worries about his family and how they would respond to him, Hazur actually had given instructions to him. And Hazur, we found His Holiness, whenever we would write to His Holiness about instructions about what to do with such and such person, the response would always be catered towards that individual. And it would be so clear that His Holiness Hazur had clearly must have prayed about this, thought about this, and prayed for this individual, and then told us, let this person know this is what he should do at that moment. And of course, that individual, we know that that individual that at that time was instructed that for you to believe in such a circumstance in your heart is a great thing. And because your situation does not allow you to, you have, of course, a fear right now. You, of course, can believe, and you don't have to tell your parents or your family at the moment. And when, of course, when you come in a situation where, inshallah, where you can open up, or you feel like you're financially stable to be able to support yourself, then you can make a decision on your own behalf whether you want to do that or not. This is something which I feel beautiful, because we find that other clerics or other people who are so missionary-based, religions and groups which are so missionary-based, they want to show the world, look at our progress, look at how many people we've converted, look at how amazing we are. This is how great our force is. But for us and for His Holiness Hazur, it's not even about that. It's about personal faith, and it's about protecting your own. And this is what I found very beautiful in the guidance that we received. So he, of course, did that. But there came a time where this person, a few years later, became financially stable. And he left his country. He left the opportunity to inherit his father's business. And he started off on his own, from zero, just because he had to become an Ahmadi. And that goes to show that these people are willing to go much, much further than some of us to accept the truth. And these are youngsters. Remember that he was a kid like me. On the opposite side of the spectrum, we have another gentleman who we came across, about 50 years old, 50, okay? His whole life he's lived almost. He's got a family, he's got kids. He's a professor in a school, a very, very good school. Again, in a country where Islam Ahmadiyya is a taboo topic. And he's watching the videos and he's seeing Hazur and he's obviously watching the Friday sermons, the classes of children, and we're seeing his comments, and his comments are all about how lovely is this man, how beautiful is this man who spends time with the children, how amazing is this man who's so kind with his words to the children of his people. And we of course were like thinking, this must be very, very a devout Ahmadi. This must be a very, very amazing Ahmadi. So we got in touch with him to find out that he isn't even an Ahmadi. He's not even a Ahmadi, and he is of course a Muslim. But we were very surprised about this. So we got in touch with him, and we found out that this gentleman had said to me, he said, "Look, I've been trying to learn about Islam Ahmadiyya for so long. 18 years ago, I came across one book, Barahine Ahmadiyya, written by the Prophet ﷺ, one of his greatest works. That's the only thing I've ever come across, and I read that, and I thought, this is very interesting." But of course, that was written before many of his claims, and he said that was, of course, something that I learned a lot, and I wanted to know more about Ahmadiyya. But I couldn't find out anything more because where I live, there's no literature about Ahmadiyya. It's banned. Online content is very difficult to get hold of. Finally, I came across this channel, and I see this man, and he's teaching kids, and he's very kind to them. And I realized that Ahmadis, and I remember 18 years ago, I read about these people. And he, at that moment, he couldn't go beyond this because he didn't have anybody to speak to. He couldn't speak to his friends or family. What would they say to him? They'd probably attack him or something. And one day he was in an open area where there was some people talking about religion. And one of them, for some reason, started talking about Ahmadiyyat. They obviously called it Qadianiyat, and they started speaking about the ideologies, our beliefs. What do we believe? We believe about a new prophet. We believe about Khilafat. We believe about all of these things, which to them is heretical. Now, this man who I'm speaking about, he heard all of this. He's like, he first he didn't say anything. He's like, okay, they're challenging their beliefs, they're challenging their ideologies, fine. Then those people started saying that these people, they're not kind people. They're vile, disgusting people. They don't care about humanity. He stopped there. He said, look, listen, I don't know too much about their beliefs. I don't know too much about their ideologies, but I know about their leader. And if you are trying to tell me that they are, people who are ill-mannered, they are people who are harsh and disgusting, that's absolutely not the case. I've seen them. They are very kind. They are very, very loving, and they are the best for humanity. So don't even try and argue about this point. And there was a bit of a dispute about, obviously, what happened there. And he was harassed and targeted, and it ended there. That's it, finished. But he walked away thinking that clearly there is some problem here with what people are thinking and what is the reality. And then alhamdulillah, we picked up upon his comments, and we contacted him, and he, alhamdulillah, he was over the moon about this. He said, look, he told us his story. For years I've been trying to research. I've been trying to find a single soul who would just come online and just answer me, just talk to me. And that's where we need to come in. That's where we need to remove our nervousness, our jijak, what we call it. Just do it. And we spoke to him, and he was over the moon about it. Like I said, these people who we do tabligh to online, they've already done half the tabligh to themselves. We just need to do the rest of it. They've done half of the work themselves. We just need to be there to help them just walk, the final steps. So, like I said, he really didn't have too much to ask. There were a few things which were not related to Ahmadiyya. Like I said, we told him, here's the things you can study them. He is a professor, like I said. So he loved to study things himself. He had a few questions about, the concepts about jinn and about other spiritual things, which unfortunately modern day clerics have blown completely out of proportion. And we clarified that, and alhamdulillah, he saw that this made the most sense. And he decided again that he would become an Ahmadi. He would like to become an Ahmadi. And he had many problems as well. Like I said, he was in a place where it could have been problematic. He decided, look, I live in a place where, where I'm online. I'm in a place where, how do I read Jummah, for example? How do I read Friday sermon? I can't go to the mosque there because obviously I can't read it with them. My family doesn't even know I'm Ahmadi yet. What am I supposed to do? And so, of course, again, we have that beauty of Khilafat, but we could have asked for that guidance, and we said, His Holiness, what do we do? And he was given his guidance at that time that, of course, you are again in a situation where it's difficult for you now. So you do your own thing. And when the time, inshallah, comes where you can do it, you do that with the people. And alhamdulillah, not only was this guidance from Huzur, but it was a prayer. Because then following that, his family also began to accept Ahmadiyyat slowly. And he was able to then create a congregational prayer and do that and continue. And he was so devout. Of course, he's still devout. That he's like, I even though I cannot meet Huzur in person, I cannot meet His Holiness in person. Please, this is my picture. just send that to His Holiness, and this is my letter. Do that, and please send it over. And he said to me, and this is his words. He said that if you do this, if you send my photo and you send my letter to this man, the Khalifa, my life is fulfilled. My life is completed. That's it. I'm done. I'm a professor. I don't need anything else. Now, us living here in the UK, other people in the Europe who listen to these kinds of things, we just feel so silly. We feel silly. We're like, look, this is what they fought so hard for what we already have. So hard. What are we doing with what we have? How much are we making out of what we already have? This is a reminder for us. We're extremely lucky, alhamdulillah. Please let me know if I'm going close to time, because I kind of don't have any idea. I can see it's 30 minutes so far, so I think I have about maybe 10 minutes more. I think I'll speak about one more person, and we'll leave it at that. I spoke about two people who, one was very old, one was young. One knew a little bit about Ahmadiyya, only so much so that they had been fed a bit of prejudice about Islam. One was very old, professor, again, had read a little bit about Islam Ahmadiyya. The person I'm now going to speak about is a person who had studied in an Islamic college, has studied so much about Islam that even when I came across him, I was a bit drawn back. I was thinking, hold on a minute, we need to prepare. We need to know what to say. He wasn't too old. He was mid-age, but he was very, 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 very scholarly, very learned, and he was passionate about Islam. We spoke to him. Again, we came across him just through comments. No other way. We didn't have to do anything else. He came to us. And again, his comments in the beginning were not positive. So like I said, never give up on a person. We spoke to this person about many, many things. I mean, the list is endless. Spoke to him for months about things about, like I said, the various things, Khatam al-Nabuwwat, Wafat al-Masih, the ahadith, about the ahadith we present, about the tafasir we present, the stance of us about various things. And there was a long debate and a friendly debate about that as well. And we would come back and forth, and again, we can talk about what that stuff was in a bit. But eventually, he also came to the point where he said, look, whatever his school of thought was, I won't mention it. Very, very learned person. Decided that this is the truth. And everything I've been learning so far, even though, and just remember this, because this is very difficult. Imagine there's a person who's growing up, their whole life they've been taught one thing. They've almost been brainwashed into a way. And not only have they been brainwashed, but they've been brainwashed in a way that if you think against this, if you say that this is wrong, if you challenge this, your life will be made hell. And a person still chooses to reject it. That's what he did. He was a person who, all the scholars and his friends, everybody who knew, was a scholar who believed against us. Yet he chose to free himself from the shackles, and he knew that he would face backlash, but he still did it. That takes guts, that takes someone with courage and true faith. Not only that, but he was also in a similar situation where he had to leave his country in order to become an Ahmadi. Imagine this, so much difficulty he had to embrace, but he did it. And again, we're just sitting here feeling silly because we're like, what are we doing? What we already have. He had to fight for this, but we already have it. And alhamdulillah, these gentlemen, these people, they are so devout, they are so powerful in the way they believe. Like I said in the beginning, خياركم في الجاهلية خياركم في الإسلام, that the best of you pre-Islam are the best of you once they've accepted Islam as well. Like I said, with the example of Hazrat Umar radiallahu anhu. There are many other examples that we can see of people, but the examples matter only as much as our effort matters. There are so many people out there that only if we just respond to them, it could change their life. We don't need to go about creating our own YouTube channels. We don't need to go about creating our own platforms. Alhamdulillah, the Jamaat has a nizam. We have a platform, and everything is there ready for us. We just have to pick the cherries. We've got MTA, we've got Review of Religions, we've got this new platform inside Ahmadiyya dedicated to answering allegations. All we need to do is go to the comments and make sure that whenever we see somebody who we can speak to, we speak to them and we defend them. And the greatest thing about social media and online is that if you're not sure about answering a question, you don't know how to answer a question, then don't. Wait, speak to somebody who might know about it, speak to somebody who is educated about it, and come back and continue the conversation. And that's the beauty of online. You can do that. There's no harm in that. Someone just mentioned a comment about Islam Unraveled. I know this is a UK project which has just launched. Amazing again to see that there's so many platforms out there that are helping you to learn more about your religion and what you believe in. There's another one coming out soon, actually. It's called The Existence Project by the Review of Religions. Keep an eye out for that as well. It's on the 27th of February. It's going to launch, which is dedicated about the existence of God. I don't know too much about it myself, but it seems pretty cool. So, like I said, there's all these platforms available for the youth, especially. If I speak about Inside Ahmadiyya, the platform that we're working on, the idea that we had behind Inside Ahmadiyya was one thing. We want to disseminate credible information with its source and original reference in a very short amount of time. So that if you are the kind of person, my kind of person, who really doesn't have the energy all the time to watch through a 50 or 1 hour video about one topic and then try and figure out what to say, then you can just watch a short video and you can quickly find out the original references so nobody can challenge you at the same time, and you have your information right there. That's what Inside Ahmadiyya is for. If you haven't followed it already, get following it, start learning about your religion. You should always know why you believe in what you believe. You should never have any questions in your mind that go unanswered. Educate yourself. If reading is for you, then go and read the books of the Prophet ﷺ. Every Ahmadi should strive to do that. Even if it's 2 or 3 pages a day. English, Urdu, whatever language you want, it's available. Al-Islam is there. Do it. Go and do it. The Tafsir are available as well. Beyond that, watch these videos. There's so much other stuff that is available there for you to educate yourself. It's never been easier. Again, online has made it so much easier for us to learn about our faith. And I won't stress enough, these platforms are there for you. If you have any questions that we haven't answered on Inside Ahmadiyya, other platforms, just drop us a comment. Because we are only making videos which people are asking us about. If there's a question that someone asks us about, we make it and it's out there soon, inshallah. So that's what we're for, and we're here to answer your questions. We're here to guide you as well. Like I said, if you're ever not sure about how to respond to a person, you feel like you're not very clear, not only about the answer, about the intent of the person. You might think that they might be there just for the oxygen. Talk to your sadr. Talk to someone who's in an official place. The Bashir, for example. They can guide you and they can help you. So with that, I think it's almost about time that I've come to the end. So I'll leave it with that. So may Allah enable us to have the passion, to have the confidence, to have the courage to try and spread true Islam, Ahmadiyya. Ameen. Allahumma ameen. Wa akhiru da'wana and alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen.
Jazakallah, Qamar Sahib, Murabi Sahib, for an excellent, informative, I would say inspiring lecture. Undoubtedly, your young age experience and research has definitely highlighted the most important elements of online tabligh. I'm sure this lecture must have allowed our viewers to understand the opportunities of social media in a very positive way for the propagation of Islam, Ahmadiyya. So Jazakallah for that. I would pass it on to Waqar Ahmadi Sahib, who will conduct the remaining part of the program.
Jazakallah, Murabi Sahib. I'll go straight into the questions that we've received from viewers. So one question is from Tayyab Mahmood Sahib, who asks, were any tabligh successes achieved via texts and emails or even video chat specifically, as far as you know?
Jazakallah Tayyab Sahib. I don't think there's any other way that we did do it, to be honest. The easiest ways are always the best ways. We did it through texting, through email, through calls. But I would say that if you are going to do a call, you should always make sure that you know who you're talking to first. And that's why I stress that it's important to let the relevant officers know. For example, if you're talking to somebody in a sensitive country, or you're talking to a person who might kind of know where you live, for example, they might know your location, you should at least know Wakalat Tabshir or other officers about this, that you are actively doing tabligh with this person. They will certainly have guidance for you about what to do in that circumstance, in that situation. If it's social media, if it's places like Twitter, open spaces, open platforms, it's a little bit more controllable and we know exactly what's happening. Other people can see it as well. So yeah, like I said, texting, email, video chat. Video chat I don't really know about for you guys. I don't know if I should really tell you guys to do it, but because we are an official office, we are an official platform, we do and can do that. I would be very wary to do things like that for yourselves. Like I said, you just don't know who it is at the end of the call. So always try to restrict it to things like where you know that you can be safe at the end of the day. That's different for everybody.
So following on from that, there's another question in relation to how to deal with negative responses and vicious attacks on social media. So where you would encourage continued dialogue and interaction with a non-Ahmadi, for instance, what tips would you give in terms of how to maintain that dialogue and what the reaction should be if there is abuse?
Absolutely. So, I mean, the first social media platform that I started on, well, not for Inside Ahmadiyya, but generally speaking, was Twitter. Twitter is a haven of trolls. You just find people who are just there to waste your time. They have an agenda. They don't care about what you say. It will always, you might post something like really, really good. You might post something so amazing, like it's got a lot of information. You've posted something which is a complete answer. But you will always know that there will be a group of people that will always object to it, no matter what happens. And the more you use social media and the more you become, accustomed to your platform, you will know about certain accounts that are doing that. And it's very obvious over time who they are. And they are troll accounts, they are other accounts which we know about. And generally speaking, if you see these accounts and you see them doing that, and you know that they have an agenda, then oftentimes it's not your place to try and tackle those issues. It is definitely our job as departments to try and tackle that issue. But if you know that that's the case, then obviously you know that that person is a troll. Then don't need to do that. If you see somebody who you thought was in the beginning who was positive, or even though you thought they were a bit harsh, but you gave them a chance, of course the Holy Quran says that when they express their ignorance time and time again, and they continue to show stubbornness, then all we have to do is say peace. We turn away from them. It's simple as that. I'll tell you why. It's really important. Never, ever on social media stoop to their low. Never, ever go back towards their level of rudeness, or try to, if they're mocking us and you try and attack them, even if you attacking them in that instance is right. For example, I definitely wouldn't do this, but I've seen Ahmadis do it. It's very wrong that you mock someone's belief, or you believe Jesus is in the sky. How stupid is that? How silly is it? God forbid. We shouldn't do that. That's someone's belief. That's someone's sentiment. And we should never stoop to that low. Even if we think that belief is wrong, never ever do that. Always be humble, always be kind about how you are approaching it. Why? Because social media, you're doing tabligh to Mr. A, right? You're speaking to Mr. A and you're having a conversation. It's Twitter, it's Instagram. You have about 40, 50, potentially 100 other people who are watching that conversation. They don't care about what your arguments are. They don't care about how cleverly you debated and navigated the debate. They don't care about that. They care about how kind you were. They care about how understanding or respectful you were of the other person. And if somebody hints or detects that you are arrogant, or you are proud, or you are rude in the way you present your arguments, that's it. It's game over. You've lost that person. So that's more important. And that's why the Prophet ﷺ, time and time again, emphasized that when we do tabligh, we do it with humility. And that's the key thing. So if someone's being rude to you, they're being harsh to you, we don't respond in likeness. And that's what I'll leave it at.
That's very wise advice. We have a question from Rohanullah Chima, who asks, how can we help a person who is attracted to Ahmadiyyat but fears their family and society?
Absolutely. So here again, like I said, we have guidance from His Holiness about certain individuals, but generally speaking, this is a matter of iman. So if somebody who is in a situation where they are finding difficulty, especially youngsters, because youngsters are mainly those who come on social media, they're fearful about telling their families and things like that, then they don't have to tell their families. And if they think that's going to cause a problem, it's going to be a problem which will be it might cause them harm, then for them, belief, at least in the beginning, belief is enough. That they have this belief in their hearts and they accept it wholeheartedly. So that's really important. Like I said, there are platforms where we have Khudam al-Ahmadiyya, for instance. It depends what auxiliary they belong to. There could be Lajna, there could be Atfal, there could be Khudam. And those auxiliaries are there to take care of people. Like I belong to, I oversee the New Ahmadis department in Majlis Khudam al-Ahmadiyya. And I'm very, very honored to do that. And we will always have people that are very sensitive, like I said, about them becoming an Ahmadi. And we understand that, and we respect that. And we as an auxiliary, we need to know that we have to be very sensitive about how we approach them. When you do tabligh to somebody, you have to explain to them the nizam. Because generally people who are Muslims, they don't know what nizam or organization is. And when they begin to see how organized Ahmadiyya Jamaat is, we have departments for New Ahmadis. We have auxiliaries like Khudam al-Ahmadiyya Lajna, who are there to make sure that your security and your sanctity is kept in place, then they will understand that they're not taking this risk on their own, but they have a family. They belong to a family now. They might be leaving their old family, or they might be not be, feel emotionally attached to their old family, but they now have a new family that is not just there, but they're organized and they're present to make sure that you're never alone. So this, when you understand that beyond the fact that the Ahmadiyyat, they believe that theoretically it's true, but there's also an organization there to help them, and that often helps them to understand that they feel more protected and they can take that step easily as well. And that includes Khilafat Ahmadiyya, of course, as part of the Nizam.
Dr. Murabi Sahib, the next question is in relation to the differences in the number of conversions in different parts of the world. So one viewer has written that we do often hear of many conversions in continents like Africa, for instance, but less so in the West, possibly because of materialism. But is there anything in particular you can say on that?
Absolutely. So I'll say two things. I remember a couple of years back, I was overseeing the press and media kind of department of Khudam al-Ahmadiyya, and we had one such journalist who asked a similar question, not from a malicious point of view, just genuinely wanted to know what are the figures of the Ahmadiyya Jamaat. So at that time, I found out through official means and things like that. And her question was in relation again to African countries and other places like that. And how do we identify, who is really an Ahmadi? So the greatest thing that we can see nowadays is that His Holiness Hazrat Amir al-Mu'min Ayyadahullahu bi Nasrihi al-Aziz, time and time again, is giving emphasis on things like Tahriq Jadid, Waqf Jadid. And obviously this is a blessing, it's a charitable act, it's a sadaqah, it's something that Muslims should do because it's a good deed, obviously. But beyond that, there's one more thing which this serves a purpose. Why is it so important? To sign a bai'at form, you could go to Africa today, and I'm not saying this is what we do, but in the past, Christian missionaries used to go to Africa, and they used to go to different villages and go, and this is not me saying this, by the way, I was in Jamia obviously many years ago, and one guest came to Jamia, and they said to us, look, are you like the Christian missionaries who go to villages and they say, we'll build your hospitals and we'll build your schools and we'll give you all of the stuff you need, just become a Christian? And obviously those people would then become a Christian because they needed that stuff. They were living in poverty. So why not accept Christianity? But at the heart, and ideologically and theoretically, they never used to attend the church, for example. They never really used to practice Christianity. They were just there by name. And this is what that woman who was a guest, she told me this. And I said to her, of course, that's not the case. We actively do believe, we missionaries, and we have a Nizam there. But what I did say to her at that time is, look, you can sign a bai'at form. Anybody can sign a form and they become an Ahmadi, right? You can go and do that for 2 million people. How do you know that they're practicing? How do you know that they're actually actively doing something? And that's one way. The easiest way to know that is, do they pay the chanda? Because if somebody's active and they're devout, no one gives money to an organization if they're not devout. No one wants to spend their money on something that they don't even care about. That's why Hazur has, of course, been speaking about Tahriq Jadid. And the figures that we see of Tahriq Jadid, the hundreds and thousands of people, and the overall category that we have millions of people every single year taking part in Tahriq Jadid. And this is not something which is just a random number. It's accounted for. It's accounted because we have to submit that report to other organizations who will look at our funds. And if we don't obviously have accurate numbers, then they will obviously have concerns about that. So it's not something which is just a vague figure. It's to the penny. It's something that we have to account for because we're a charity. So we can't lie about it. We can't hide it. These figures are accurate. And those people who are taking part in Tahriq Jadid, they must be active Ahmadis. They must be those people who actually want to contribute towards Jamaat Ahmadiyya. So these millions of numbers, these millions of figures, where are they coming from? That's the big question. And Tahriq Jadid proves that they are coming from those who are devout members. Now, the question that why are there more in Africa? Why are there less in the West, for example? Number one, I think, personally speaking, this is not something which is an acclaimed thing, but like I said, there is a jijak, there is a sort of nervousness in our youth today to talk to people about religion. It's because we're brought up in places, in schools and things like that, but even me, when I was a youngster, I used to feel very nervous about speaking about my faith. Part of that may have been because at that time I didn't have the right tools available to me. English speaking, it was a bit difficult for me to learn. But also, I felt like if I spoke about my faith, it could have been a little bit embarrassing for me. That's what a complex that a lot of me and other youth would have come into. But now that we are seeing a rise in Tabligh again, and I think this is something which kind of went missing, because unfortunately before 9/11 there was a lot of Khuddam and Saad who used to actively go out to places like Speaker's Corner. They used to go out on the high streets. I remember my dad and my elders taking me to the high street, and we used to do Tabligh to people, and we were very happy about it. We weren't even nervous about it. And then obviously these things like 9/11 happened and other unfortunate unjust things happened, and obviously there was an instruction as well that Ahmadis should be more careful about going onto the streets to do Tabligh. And ever since then, to about a couple of years ago, that kind of activeness in Tabligh on the street has kind of died down. And our youth have kind of forgotten the ways of Tabligh. They've forgotten about how to talk to someone on the street. It's true. And now if I ask a youngster to go out with me on the street and do it, it's going to be very difficult because they're extremely nervous. They haven't done it before. They haven't seen their dad or their brothers do it. They have got no experience. They haven't got anyone to look up to, in essence, to do it. But we're changing that now, alhamdulillah. We're going to start, and we are starting to begin that Tabligh active process again. And it will take time for our youth and even our elders who may be from Pakistan, they don't know English. It will take a generation or so for that to come back into its stride. Nevertheless, inshallah, it will happen. That's the first reason, I think. The second reason, I think, this is beyond the complex whole thing, beyond the whole complex of being in the West and having to uphold an image that, oh man, I'm cool, man, I can't talk about religion, I'm a gangster from the street, isn't it? So having to break that image is one thing, but beyond that, well, I went to Ghana a couple of years ago. I had the opportunity to do that, and I just saw the people, and these people are the happiest people on the planet. They don't care about materialism, like one of you guys mentioned. They don't suffer as much, as far as I saw, from things like anxiety and other problems, and they are very happy, and they already have a firm faith in God. I didn't, for the 2 months that I was there, I don't even think I met one single atheist, save one person. And even when I spoke to that atheist, they immediately were very happy to accept a lot of the things that I had to say. The people that live there, beautiful people, have this happiness about them. And I speak for Ghana myself. I can't speak for every single country, but people that I saw, they don't have this attachment to godlessness. And I'm not saying that's because of Islam. That's just how they are. So when you go to them with the message of Islam, they're already willing to accept something which has an ideology about God. Come to the West, it's completely the opposite. Forget Islam, forget morals, forget religion. They don't even care about God. They don't even care about anything. You know, it's very difficult to speak to somebody about that. And that's why I would stress again that when you're going out on the street, it's very difficult to sometimes speak to people because they don't really care about religion. But when you come online and you're speaking to people who are already commenting on religious videos, you're already halfway there because they are already those people who are interested in religion in the first place. So that's why it's really important to do that. Now, having said that, all of this, I wouldn't say that we should give up on street Tabligh. But like I said, it's going to take time. Honestly speaking, it's going to take time because there has been a bit of a gap, I feel. And there has been that lack of confidence, and we need to bring that back. And when we have that back, then I don't see why we can't, like other Jehovah's Witnesses, do it. We have others, like, I won't name them, Sunni clerics, young Sunni boys out there on the streets who are doing it. They're getting a massive following. What's stopping us from doing it? Nothing. We just need to train, we need to be prepared. And all of these platforms that we've now initiated, those are serving that purpose, inshallah. So having said that, we'll do it. And inshallah, even in the West, we should see that there should be a great rise in the amount of numbers that we have. And actually there are. The recent figures for new Ahmadis nowadays are increasing many fold. Even though that might not be at the numbers that we want them to see right now, but they have increased a lot over maybe even the past 1 or 2 years.
We have about 5 minutes remaining, and we do have a few more questions. I'll just pair these up just in the interest of time.
Yep.
One set of questions in relation to, again, how to respond on social media. So there's one question from Mubarak Ahmed who asks, if you are trying to defend Ahmadiyyat against a negative comment on a platform somewhere or a forum, but there are more people who are mocking and attacking your position, what should you do in that situation? And also a question we have from Asif Mahmood Sahib, who says that what should you do in a situation where you are asked a straight yes or no answer question?
Okay, so first of all, I think I mean I'm not really clear on the first question. Maybe it's like you're trying to answer a person, but there's another group of people that are trying to
Yeah, basically
create
the
a
voice
fuss.
is drowned out by a hostile crowd, let's say, on a social media forum. And you
Absolutely,
can respond to a point, but you're not able to because there's too much interference from others.
absolutely. So, like I said, normally these kinds of things happen when you're debating somebody in a thread on Twitter, for example, back and forth. And like I said, at that time, even though we should present our arguments, that's one part of it. But the more important thing is the way we do it, the conduct. I can't stress that enough to you guys. You look, half of these guys that you're debating, they some of them probably already know what you're going to say. They already know your arguments. They just have an agenda, have other prejudices about why they don't want to accept us. But if they are trying to provoke you, then they're only trying to provoke you for one reason, so that you become rude back to them, so that you become arrogant and mocking back towards them as well. That's why they're trying to be like that. And if they can prove that this Ahmadi is also mocking, or he likes to have a jab at people, he likes to be aggressive at people, then what's the difference between us and those Muslims? There's nothing. It's just our belief, isn't it? We're not actually better than them in any other way. So remember, even though you should respond to them and you should give your arguments, we have to be at most humble and most kind, and we have to be like that. And that will do better tabligh, and that will be more far-reaching than anything else. So the second thing was, I forgot the second thing was about.
Rashid, if you're trying to be cornered for giving a yes or no answer to, let's say, a complex question.
So that's
For
quite.
instance, do you believe in another prophet after the Holy Prophet? If it's a yes or no answer, how would you encourage us to respond to that sort of question?
It depends on the platform. If it's a talk, like if you're live with somebody, it's very easy. You just defer the same question back to them. You say, all right, I'll answer that if you can give me an answer to this in a yes or no, and you can answer them with anything. But we actually because we're speaking about this topic, we actually literally got this question a few days ago. There was a person who spoke about, I can't remember, I'm trying to recall the exact topic. I think we were talking about a particular hadith, which was speaking about the finality of prophethood. And what it said is, it said something like, it was one of the hadiths that said, La Nabi Abadi, there is no prophet after me. And he said well, he wasn't speaking to me, he was speaking to one of my colleagues. And he said, look, listen, do you accept this hadith, yes or no? Just tell me yes or no. And we literally, or the brother came back to him and said, look, all right, do you accept this hadith, yes or no? And the problem was that he also didn't want to answer it in yes or no, because the same hadith would have contradicted his own belief that he's also waiting for Hazrat Isa alayhi salam to return. And that was it. He had no answer. So many a time, when you are asked a question which is yes or no, you should defer it back to the person. Or find an ilzami jawab, which we call a contradicting statement, which makes them realize that the same thing that they're trying to allege against us will fall back upon them as well. So this is one of the greatest ways, I think, to do that. But again, it depends on what the question is. The only reason I'm saying it for this time is because that hadith literally did contradict that person's own statement. Otherwise, I don't see why you guys feel the need to be pressured into something in the first place. I mean, it's online. Okay, he's asked the questions, yes or no. Why do you have to respond to him? Like, who cares? Just respond to him how you want to. Like, don't get pressured by people. Just answer them how you want to answer them, and just be straightforward with them. There's no rules in that. No one set a rule that, oh, if you didn't answer no or yes, you lost the debate. It doesn't even work like that. People are just looking for the essence of what's being said. So if someone's trying to be tricky or they're trying to be clever, then people will see through that. So don't worry about that stuff in the first place.
So maybe we just got time for one last question. We've got about 2 minutes remaining. This question is from Labid Shervani, who asks about official and non-official channels created by Ahmadis. Mm-hmm. So is there any guidance you can offer in terms of which platforms are official that we should encourage use of?
Okay. All right, quickly, I'll give you a full story here. I've got a minute or so. Before I became a Murabbi, and I don't mean like, I just left Jamia, to be honest. And when I left Jamia, I had a huge passion to do tabligh, like a massive passion to do tabligh. And I actually opened up my own YouTube channel, and I started making videos and things like that in the beginning. And I actually got a letter from Huzur a long time ago saying that you're a missionary, you're a Murabbi, you've opened a channel, have you taken permission? And obviously straight away I realized that what that meant is that you need to take permission. And obviously at that time it was something which was a difficult thing for me, like as in I had felt that I had made a huge error, and I was very, very remorseful about that. And I prayed about it a lot, and Alhamdulillah, then Hazur gave me the opportunity to serve in MTA online now, where I now have had the opportunity to actually serve in an official platform anyway. So Alhamdulillah, I see that my passion and Hazur saw that, and my prayers were accepted in the way that I now am able to do the same thing, but in an official way. Now that does not mean that Ahmadis cannot go out there and make their own platforms. Murabbis, official office holders, definitely have to take permission. You have to take permission. If you're a department, you have to take permission. If you're an Ahmadi who doesn't have an office, you're not a Murabbi, you should still write to Huzur if you want to do something like this. Because, like I said, Al-Imamu Junnatun yuqatalu min wara'ihi. That the Imam, the Khalifa, is a shield. You should always fight behind that shield. If you don't fight behind the shield and someone attacks you, you're gone. Always make sure that you have the prayers, the blessings, and the protection of the Khalifa before doing anything. It doesn't matter if you're opening a channel or if you're just baking some bread. Whatever it is, you're making an endeavor in your life. It's a new stage in your life. Always write to Huzur about that. That's a new blessing. So yes, you need to take permission. Some of you might be asking about certain channels. I know. I'm not going to name them here. They're very passionate. They're amazing. They're successful. Some of them have asked for permission, and you should follow them. I don't really know particularly which ones you're asking about, but the ones I can tell you which are official, I'll name them off the top of my head. MTA, Review of Religions, Inside Ahmadiyya. You've got your what was it? Islam Unraveled, the New Existence Project that's coming up. You've got Rational Religion, which is also another one by MKA. These are probably the best ones that I can think of off the top of my head. If there are other ones out there, I am not by any means saying that you shouldn't follow them. You should. I'll tell you why. Because a lot of the time, those platforms and those departments and those channels, they have a lot of ease in the way they can make stuff. They don't have certain restrictions that they don't have to follow. So it's easier for them to make content. They may not be official. There's no harm in following them. But yes, they might not be official at the end of the day. But it doesn't mean that they're not allowed to do that. Have they asked permission from Hazur? If I'm following you correctly, and I think you're talking about that particular channel, then yes, they have asked permission from Hazur. So you can follow them. So that's fine.
Dr. Sab, you've mashallah answered all of our viewers' questions very comprehensively and given a very enlightening lecture that was very much anticipated. So Jazakallah for your time and efforts this evening.
No worries.
Showing, mashallah, Dawat-ul-Illah is still possible in the world. And obviously, these are the means that have been created for the purpose of the promised Messiah, salam, and for his message to spread around the world. So Jazakumullah. Also, just for the information of viewers, we apologize for the technical difficulties that we had in yesterday evening's lecture by Tahir Mahmood Mubashir Sahib, Murabbi al-Silsila, on the topic of kindness for parents, which was not able to broadcast fully. Inshallah, we'll endeavor to have Murabbi Sahib back with us in a future lecture. In relation to what's coming up next week, on Monday, the 22nd of February, we will have our next Urdu lecture by Murabbi al-Silsila, Daud Qureshi Sahib, on the topic of Astaghfar, and then that will be followed by our next English lecture a week today by Arif Khan Sahib of Review of Religions on the topic of the tomb of Jesus alayhi salam. So you could please join us for both of those lectures at the same time of 8 o'clock next week. If I could please hand over to our respected Secretary Talim, Nadeem Rahman Sahib, for any final remarks.
Jazakallah. I just wanted to say Jazakallah to all our dear viewers who time and time again come onto our platform and listen and view. Also to Waqar Ahmadi and Shakir Rathor Saab for continuously hosting these events. And last but certainly not least, Murabbi Saab, Qamar Saab, Jazakallah for taking your valuable time out and coming in. If I could humbly request you to lead us in silent prayer so we can conclude the session, please.
Of course. If you could kindly just, everybody, please join me in silent prayer. Ameen. Allahumma ameen.
Jazakallah. Assalamu alaikum.